Welcome back to an episode of Club Gene Sports. I'm with my co-host Josh Harper. How's it going, brother?
What up, Marco? What's going on?
Not much, man. The draft just ended. Trying to figure out where everyone sits, where all the 49ers are, and if they drafted well. I mean, I have opinions on it, so definitely I haven't talked about the draft since Saturday when I was live talking about the draft. Just wanted to see what you had to think, what your thoughts were draft day.
Man, draft day it was tough, man. As a fan looking on, I mean, I've done my research before the draft and I've been in draft rooms, actual draft rooms, actual draft meetings. So I
So
mean,
let's
I get it.
before we talk about that, I do want to ask you questions. I never known
Yeah.
you were in a draft room and stuff
Yeah.
like that. So I
Yeah.
do want to ask
Yeah.
you questions about that now because that's
Mhm.
pretty dope.
Mhm. Go ahead. What?
So when you're in the draft room,
Mhm.
what are some of the things that come up? So I know a lot of people are like, okay, let's have a debate, or is that a such thing that happens like where you're seriously debating this player versus this player in a
Mhm.
certain round, for example? Do you think the Niners could have been debating Ricky Pearsall versus another receiver at 31, or do you think they had Ricky Pearsall locked at pick 31?
Yeah, I think that could have been a situation where they had a few guys on the board at pick 31 where John Lynch wanted one thing and Kyle wanted another. So when I was with the Raiders, it was one person and one person only. It was John Gruden. He made the decision, so it didn't matter what you said. It was what he says. So and that's how they got Cleveland Farrell. Side note. So but
So pretty
but for
okay.
yes, but for the Niners, I feel like John Lynch and Kyle are like right here. So I'm pretty sure Kyle had his favorites at 31, and John Lynch had his favorites at 31. Um, uh, but Ricky is a Kyle guy. So I think when somebody may have not failed to 31 that Kyle and John really loved, Kyle was like, well, let's take Ricky. He may not be there when we pick second round. I think that's how it went. I think the Niners are somewhat the same way. It's Kyle and John right here. It really doesn't matter what else everybody else says. It's Kyle and John, and they have that final say. That's how I think it went. That's how I think it went.
So, like outside of it being Kyle and John, let's say second round comes through. Is that when like more? When do the debates come? Like, 'cause I know a lot of times we hear, oh, teams weren't. It wasn't a consensus, and they were debating. Do the teams actually debate which player is they should take? Like, for example, is it like, oh no, we need to take. You have a high up exec who's like, no, we need to take an edge rusher here. We need to go, for example, where the Niners are picking. Do you think they could have had people arguing at that point, or is it more? Does that happen later in the draft?
Definitely later in the draft, and to my experience, it definitely happened later in the draft, where they're looking at the scouts and, hey, look, this your guy's available. Are we thinking about taking him here? What do you think? Yeah, let's take him here. Those are when the debates happen later in the draft, but definitely first and second round. Um, with my experience, it came from John Gruden, and no one else. So I definitely feel like the first and second round draft picks, it was Kyle and John, and they have a pretty good idea already going into the draft of how each other feels about certain players and where they have them on the boards. So I definitely, there's no debating going on in those earlier rounds.
Which makes sense because those early rounds, you already know what position you're going and what players you have in mind at that spot. Um, it's just interesting because I didn't know you were in a draft room. One,
Mhm,
that's pretty dope.
mhm. It was dope.
And the fact that Cleveland Farrell was the pick because of John Gruden makes it even funnier because people try saying that was a Mayock pick.
It was a John Gruden pick, and nobody knew that. Like the scouts, the other department, the scouting department did not know that was the pick until the seconds leading up to it, and we're all in
That
the
is
same room.
crazy. And it's even throughout the draft process. So
Mhm,
even then, like so, for example, and that just comes to show you what happens in an NFL room, right? For
mhm,
example, the 49ers announced, well, not 49ers, but Mike Silver. I also had gotten a text message that the Niners were going Cooper DeJean.
mhm.
It was reported by a handful of people.
Mhm,
Mike Silver, who's tapped in, he reported
mhm,
Cooper DeJean. I had heard the same thing, so we were live. I said it sounds like it's Cooper DeJean. ends up being Ricky Pearsall. So it kind of like just shows you like some of the guys may have thought or they were told they were going Cooper DeJean if he's there. I don't know if what the situation had been, but it's crazy how like you have the high execs who don't tell anyone what's going on, and then they finally make their pick. I think that's phenomenal. Now, you're the go-to receiver guy, in my opinion. I think you played at a high level, you coached it at a high level. You've obviously been around a lot of high-level players. What was your initial reaction to Ricky Pearsall going in the first? Because I know he wasn't your top dude on the board at that point. I know you had a couple of guys ahead of him. Based off of our last conversation, I know for sure you had A.D. Mitchell ahead of him. What was your initial reaction to seeing Ricky Pearsall at 31?
Yeah, it was shocking because I mean, obviously my dang, hold on. Actually, my opinions don't really matter, right? But I did not have him as the first rounder. I had him as a second rounder. So it was shocking. Like I didn't see that happening. Hold on.
And when you say second rounder, is that like late second? Is that, or when you give guys like a grade, is that more so they could go from anywhere from 33 to 64, wherever that first round, the second round grade is? Is that more so what, like when you give a guy a second round grade, is that what you're trying to say, or is it more so, hey, he's a second rounder, he should go in like the 40s or 50s?
So look, my assessments of Ricky was more so he doesn't have that game changing ability. So I get he runs routes. He runs routes really well. And I would say he runs great routes when he has a free release. Let me say that. So he runs great routes off a free release. He has soft hands. I think he's going to be a excellent zone beater, and he'll be that right away, right? But I just when I see a first rounder, I didn't see a game changer, right? And that's not to say that he won't be a good player. Early on, I think he has a high ceiling, a high floor. I'm sorry, he has a high floor, and I think he'll play right away. But I just didn't see, like, nothing really was special to me. Now I see I even reposted it. I reposted a workout video of him. It looks phenomenal. Like, it looks great, and I love it. That's the type of stuff I love. I love when I see people that know how to run routes. They're dropping their hips. They're not having any wasted movements. They're getting in and out of their breaks. But again, you still got to go back to the film and the actual football player. It just, nothing really popped out. Now, that may have been their guy, and they had a second round pick later on in the draft. He may not have been there, right? But there was, like you said, there was A.D. Mitchell there. I think he has a chance to be a really great player, who can be a game changer. And also, I think who's probably one of the more talented receivers is the kid from South Carolina. Is it
Xavier Legette?
Xavier Legette. I think he has a chance to be special, right? Now he has a chance to be that game changer. But he has to go out there and show it and prove it. And he may not become that, but I think his ceiling is way higher than Ricky Pearsall.
And for me, I thought the same thing. Like you mentioned something that I mentioned live on the show in terms of a good route runner. But my biggest issue was he struggles against press a lot. Like from what I had saw, like I felt like, and I know a lot of people are posting a couple of press wins that he gets. I'm not saying he can't do it, but it's when he allowed for a DB to shoot their hands and they land, he gets jammed pretty bad. Like he doesn't have a counter to an inside or an outside jab. And I felt like that was one of the concerns, was like, okay, I see him as I had more of a early third on him. So for me, it was more so the fact that the Niners really, you got to upgrade at a certain situation. And I felt like they got better at receiver, but at the same time, how much better did they get if he can't beat press man? And that's what lost him a Super Bowl. So if the Chiefs were to play him again and they go and really press the hell out of the Niners like they did in the Super Bowl, what's the reality of him creating separation? Because he doesn't create separation, in my opinion, deep, even though he plays 4-4-1. I didn't think he played with that kind of speed in college. I know a lot of people were like, oh no, his raw score is phenomenal. It's better than this player. That's cool, but the film doesn't show that he's that, like you're saying, that game changing playmaking ability, speed
Mhm.
wise. Great player. Don't get me wrong, but he doesn't have that ability to change a franchise. If that makes sense. Like, do you
No,
see him coming in and changing a franchise?
no, and that's why when I'm seeing man, so when I'm seeing people talk about, okay, they drafted Ricky Pearsall, yeah, they must be trading Brandon Ayuk. No. So you're expecting him, okay, he may become the number one receiver. He may be this really great Niner. But me personally, I don't see it. I see him being a good player, but not on a level as Brandon Ayuk. And so, like when they drafted Ricky, I'm like, okay, they're keeping Brandon Ayuk still to this day, and they plan on getting him an extension because he just doesn't. He just does. He's not a number one receiver in my book. I see him as a really great number three and a decent two receiver who could be a decent two receiver in the NFL. But yeah, like it just there's no superstar potential there. And like you said, when I was watching the film, I had to go check what he ran because you didn't see it. I mean, he made some good catches down the field. He made those ESPN, the one-handed catch that probably has everybody's attention. But you just don't see the 4.41 speed. He plays hard. Now I'll give him that. He plays hard, and he runs crisp routes. But for somebody like that who's a route runner, I need them to be better off the press. But Kyle will find ways for him to get free releases and play to his strength, I think.
How do you think he's used this year? Is this a more so a 2025 pick in the sense of he'll be taking on a big role in 2025 versus this year having BA and Debo on the roster? He's kind of taking a back seat role and learning on the job. So he doesn't have to be forced into a role. A lot of times when you force players into a role too early, even though he's a 5th year, 6th year dude, um, you expect him to take that role. You expect him to be ready for that kind of role. I think it's always best to let players earn it, not necessarily force it on them. How does Kyle and John, or I more so should say Kyle,
Mm.
get their number one receiver that they just drafted the ball in his hands when you have dudes like BA, Debo, and Jawan Jennings? All three of them are going to be likely ahead of him on the depth chart.
Yeah, so I think when in this case, the Niners are win now. Ricky is an older player, so he should come in more advanced than let's say a 21-year-old receiver. Um, but I think the Niners will do a good job of implementing him into the game plan early on in the season. And depending on how he handles it, that's what his workload will look like going forward. So if he's struggling and not handling it well, you won't see much Ricky when it comes time to okay must win games and let's get the first seed or whatever they're doing, whatever they're fighting for. You won't see much Ricky. If he handles it really good, he'll split some time with Jawan Jennings and maybe even Debo on pass downs. And when Debo moves to running back to give McCaffrey a break or something like that, he'll get on the field. But it's up to him, and he got to handle it. He has to handle it right, handle it well.
Do you see Kyle and the offense going a little more pass heavy with the addition of Ricky Pearsall? Now you could run out a 4 receiver set in the sense of, or technically a 3 receiver set with Debo in the backfield and then spreading them out once you have the matchup that you want. So it allows you to go 4 receiver set with Brock Purdy. Do you think the Niners did a little more often this year due to the addition of Ricky Pearsall, or do you think Kyle sticks to his 50, 60, 40 run first offense that he tends to do and be the 32nd passing offense in the league in terms of attempts?
I think it depends. I think he'll start off a little bit more pass heavy. But then if something's happening or if something that he doesn't like, he's going back to 60-40 run. He's going back to it. That's what he's comfortable with, and that's what he'll lean back on. But I think to start, you don't just draft a receiver first round on a win now team for next year. Like he's not that level of talent where it's like, okay, he's here at 31. We cannot miss out on this dude because next year there's going to be no receiver like him in the next class. So this is a draft pick that they want to play now, and he has to come in and produce. And Kyle's going to start throwing. He's going to start it off by throwing. He has Brock Purdy. Brock Purdy's shown us that you can let it fly, let loose. Now he has a receiver who they say can beat man coverage. I think he can beat man coverage. Don't get me wrong, but he's going to have to figure out how to beat press. And if not, Kyle's going to have to figure out a way to get him some free releases.
Now, we could, instead of doing a grade now, because I was going to do a grade each player. Mm-hmm. Let's do a grade at the end of it. So the Niners ended up going second round, Renardo Green. And for me, I like this pick. This kind of gives me the opportunity that I've been actually wanting for the 49ers to go get a press man corner who could line up, get in your face, and tell you as a receiver, I'm better than you, and I don't give a fuck. Like, with that kind of swagger, and you could beat him, but he's going to come back next rep. He's going to punch you in the mouth, and he's going to keep lining it up right in front of you and press man. So for me, I'm excited about this one because, truthfully, I do want the 49ers to go a little more press and let their corners get up at the line of scrimmage. You have good press man corners, but you decide to run cover 2, cover 4, cover 3 zone, having them play off. I think Renardo Green could play zone, could play man, great in the run game. I saw someone post a video of him, and they mentioned him stopping. They put stopping or chopping his feet. No, that's just a proper tackle. That's him breaking down and actually firing through with his hips. And I thought that was an interesting post because they were trying to make it look like he was stopping or chopping his feet. But in reality is as a smaller dude who's, I believe he's 6 foot, 180 or 6 foot, 6 foot 185. You got to tackle with proper technique or you're going to get ran over. And I love how he constantly is coming down. Even though he's flying down, he's properly breaking down, sinking those hips and firing through. Really good pick. I thought he was going to go a little bit later. I thought he was going to go third round, but I didn't mind them taking a guy who could get up in your face and say, hey, all receivers are fucking trash. I'm that dude. And that's a kind of, and I know as a receiver, it pisses you guys off when a corner gets in your face and says, hey, nah, fuck it, line it up. Like, and that's the kind of dude he is. Like, if even one of his interviews, he had people were like, oh, he was a little cocky. Nah, that's the confidence that he has in himself. Like, that's not cockiness. Don't get it twisted. It's not being cocky. It's having a confidence to line up with anyone in the league. What were your thoughts when the Niners went Renardo Green?
Yeah, so I like that they went corner. I think they need a corner. I know they brought in the additions, but when I took a look and watched Renardo Green, like you said, that swagger jumps off. Like, you can tell he has confidence. He has a certain confidence to him that corners need. Especially in a pass happy, receiver led driven quarterback and receiver driven league. You got to have that confidence, that cockiness to you, and let them know, like, okay, you're not getting anything on me. So, go that way. So I love that about him. I think they're going to play him at nickel because he can come up and make tackles, and he's not afraid to come up and hit. But he's also a press corner, so he can get in, the slot man's face and, give him hell, like you said. So I like this pick a lot. I like it more after watching him than initially. But yeah, the Niners needed a corner like that. Demo has a bit of that. He has a bit of that to him. So it's going to be fun to have 3 corners. If he pans out, 3 corners that you can, especially Demo and Renaldo are interchangeable. So you can have Demo going to nickel, or you can have Renaldo going to nickel. So with that interchangeability, that's going to be nice for the Niners.
And the one thing I did like about the pick is, from what I was hearing, is Denomico Lenoir doesn't want to play nickel. Like, he wants to be outside because he understands what kind of money is outside versus the nickel. Like, you can see it around the league. The guys who play nickel, they don't get paid as much as outside corners. And Demo has the ability to play both. So if you have that ability, it's, hey, you know what? Keep me outside because I don't want you to negotiate with me as a nickel corner. I want to be negotiated as a true corner. And this pick, to me, is a win now mode pick. I didn't think Ricky Pearsall was a win now mode pick because at that time you had offensive linemen, centers. You had a couple of corners at that spot who had higher upside than Renardo Green. You had a couple of dudes who truly could have came in and started day one for the Niners along the offensive line. So for me, I was like, damn, Ricky Pearsall is more of a future pick if they don't get rid of Debo. Renardo Green's an immediate pick, but it's also a future pick because they likely can't extend Charvarius Ward.
Mhm.
And what you do is, hey, you know what, Renardo, you're going to go outside where Charvarius Ward was, and we'll find another nickel guy. We could find nickel corners on the cheap in free agency. So that's why I thought that was a really solid pick because he could play, he's interchangeable inside and outside. So it is a win now mode. You're not going to see Ambry Thomas on the field. You're not going to see the two guys they just signed, Yadam and Rock Ya-Sin on the field. You should see the rookie. And if they don't play the rookie year one, there's concerns because he has the ability to come in and play year one. And I just don't understand if they don't play him year one.
And I mean, and then if he doesn't play year one, that could be your first 2 draft picks that barely see the field. That's not a good look.
Which is a major concern because their last couple of draft picks that they've taken in the first couple of rounds in the last few years have not played much. That's Cameron Latu, for example, was supposed to come in and be your tight end too, but right away on the IR, and Niners talking about if he even is the number 2 tight end, which is concerning. Niners ended up going in the 3rd. I thought this was a hell of a pick. I love this dude at the Senior Bowl. When we talk about versatility at the Senior Bowl, he lined up at tackle. But mainly lined up at guard and center because he played tackle at Kansas. So he wanted to show his versatility. When I was watching him, that's what drew my attention was the Senior Bowl. Watching him at center and guard, more so I liked him at center. I thought he was a very talented dude who could come in year one and start at center for the Niners. Not necessarily guard because I think Feliciano is a good enough guard at that spot. But I want him to come in and compete at guard and center, and hopefully he wins out a job. That's a pick that's a pick, in my opinion, even though he's a 5th-year guy or whatever the case may be, that was a true steal because he is a dude who probably could have gone in the 2nd and you were able to get him in the 3rd and he could be a day 1 starter and he could start for your team for the next 4 to 8 years, depending on how long you truly want to keep him. I thought that was a hell of a pick. I thought he was a dude. So at the Senior Bowl, what caught my attention at the Senior Bowl was him playing center. There was a lot of dudes at the defensive tackle spot who wanted to line up with him, and he was just stonewalling everyone. It was like, all right, next dude, like, all right, now again. And to me, like, when you're that kind of dude, when you're stepping up, like, all right, first one into the line because you want to be that guy to get more reps. That to me just shows you love football, and that's what he was consistently doing. He was the first one to step up. There's a couple of times at the Senior Bowl. And this is the stuff I look at that has nothing to do with football. So there was a time where there was another guard who was trying to run up to get that spot at the right guard spot, and he beat him there and pushed the dude out the way. That shows me you care and you love football more than the dude right next to you. So that's the stuff. Those are the little things when I'm watching football, where I'm watching like these Senior Bowls or these collegiate bowl games. That's what I want to see, and that's what I saw from him. And that right there, I'm betting on the person. He loves the game of football. The tape shows he's a really good football player. What was your thoughts on getting a guard in the 3rd round, and do you think he starts year one?
Yeah, I actually like that a lot. Obviously, I'm probably with the masses where I felt like they should have went guard maybe earlier in the draft. But with his versatility, you have a chance to put the 5 best guys on the field at offensive line. So if he's a better center than Brindle, which I think Brindle is going to start. He got extended and stuff, so he'll start. But if he's a better guard than Feliciano or Buford, let's put him in there. Let's put him in there now. And, maybe Buford is a right tackle. Maybe you bring in another right tackle that, a vet, just get 5 decent, solid starters in for the 5 offensive linemen. And I think that'll be a plus. And I think he can be one of those. I think he's going to start earlier rather than later. And that's just how I feel, my feelings, and just watching him on film. Like you said, you can see it on film of the type of player he is and type of person he is. Like you said, he jumped in the line and pushed somebody back. Like, you can just see it on there. You can get a feel for it. And, I love that. With offensive linemen, I think you need that. You need to have some type of, love for the game or some type of nastiness to you. So that's good to hear that, he loves the game. You can see it. Like you said, you've seen it in the Senior Bowl. And I think he can be one of the top 5 starters on the offensive line.
And one thing I did notice with Dominic Puny, I believe I wanted to double check his short shuttle. I believe he had one of those short shuttles that was pretty ridiculous fast for a 6'5" guy. And if it is, so he had a 4.4 short shuttle. In essentially, there's a money ball like thing that I've saw on Twitter, which I think is pretty unique. So since 2010, just 28 offensive linemen, and this is an older tweet, which was from 2023, so a lot more from then now. So 28 offensive linemen recorded a 4.47 short shuttle or better at the combine. 24 of those guys were drafted. Those 24 went on to start 85% of their NFL games. Dominic Puny has a 4.4 short shuttle. So that shows that he has the ability to be a dude that could come in. And this is based off of analytics. So if you're a guy who likes analytics, or you're a guy who's like, no, film's the only thing that I watch kind of thing. I like to look at both. I like to look at analytics after I watch film. Does the film match the analytics? I never go analytics first because that's where you get guys like Hufanga in the 6th round. Can you play?
Yeah.
If you could play, you could play. That's plain and simple. And so for me, seeing that, I thought that was pretty unique because you got guys who, for example, Jason Kelce is the infamous, the one most famous for the 4.14 short shuttle. And so that's what people want to get closer to.
Yeah.
That's what Dominic Puny had when I was like, oh, all right, well, maybe the Niners did like the film. They saw hey, you know what? This short shuttle doesn't lie when it comes to starting caliber guards. Let's go out and get the dude we like. So I thought that was a really good pick as well.
Yeah. No, I think the Niners are analytic. Honestly, I think they're a bit analytic as well. You know, like with Ricky, they liked his short shuttle and things like that. They think it translates to, you know, a good route runner in and out of your break. So I think the Niners are pretty analytic as well.
And what's interesting is when you watch Puny, you do see him naturally move. Like he's a natural mover, naturally pulling. Like it just comes to him naturally. And like you said with Pearsall, that 3 cone is what Kyle fell in love with. That 6'4" 3 cone was one of the things that Kyle saw and was like, oh, this dude in and out of breaks, short intermediate route running ability. I got my little Julian Edelman kind of like receiver. That's kind of what he saw. But Niners then go Malik Mustafa, and I believe the Niners had a couple of 4th rounders. They had 3 4th rounders. They traded up, and they gave away 2 5ths for the running back they took after Mustafa. What were your initial reaction on Malik Mustafa? I keep saying his name wrong. Everyone keeps telling me it's Malik. What was your thoughts on Malik Mustafa?
I love this pick, man. He reminds me of Bob Sanders. I love this pick. He's a rocket. He's gonna explode up and shoot the gaps and, you know, run right through you. But he also has some ball skills as well. And then when I was watching, I seen that he's able to cover as well. He can cover. He's a pretty good coverer for a safety. So in a pinch, he can be a nickel as well, like a bigger nickel. So I love this pick, man. He screams confidence as well. And I just watching him on film, I know he loves football. You gotta love football to play that hard. And you know, he's not the biggest dude, but he's shooting gaps and, you know, making big hits and tackling the right way as well. So I love this pick. I think he'll be an immediate impact on special teams for sure. But you know, depending on how he does, I think he has a chance to see the field. You know, he's very versatile. Again, I think that's one of my favorite picks, and he, like I said, he reminds me of, I don't know if you remember him, but he reminds me of Bob Sanders.
Play with the Colts, right? If I'm not mistaken. Yes. Yeah. So I believe he did he win? He was on the Super Bowl team with Peyton, right?
I believe so. Could be 21. He might have been.
Yeah, I think he was. I think I know exactly what you're talking about. So what's interesting is a lot of people see him as a box safety. They see him as, oh, he's the dude who's going to take Hufanga's role next year. He's going to be around the line of scrimmage. I personally think Malik Mustafa is that star backer, like the dude who could play free safety, he could play in the nickel, he could play in the bike. Let him do what he wants. Let him be the playmaker you drafted him to be. I truly think he could be that for the Niners. I like how he plays in the nickel. Kind of gives you that Jimmy Ward, like for former 49er, Jimmy Ward vibe, like where you can line him up in the nickel. You could play safety along the deep safety. So that's kind of who I saw in a way in comparison to recent 49ers. I know a lot of fans like Jimmy Ward, so I do think Malik Mustafa is going to come in and become a fan favorite. Just the way he hits, the way he's just flying down the lane and squaring you up and lighting you up. And then there's even a play where a receiver caught the ball over the middle. Receiver tried to shake him, and he picked him up and just power slammed his ass into the ground. And I'm like, that's the kind of dude. Like, you don't have to be the most physically imposing safety. 5'10", 210. That's the perfect build. Like, he's not too short. He's not. And sometimes when you get smaller dudes at 5'10" at safety, they 5'10", they're like 190. He's 5'10", but he's built like a freaking I don't know, like a running back. Like, legit. Some of the running backs, like back in the day, like Michael Turner as a running back was just yoked, kind of how he was built. So I think it's cool to see him hit. But I don't think he's going to be used as people think. I think he's going to be used in a different role. I think he's going to be used as that free safety role to start, and gives him less responsibility along the line of scrimmage and stuff like that. Allows him to get into the flow of things, at least in camp. That's why I would love to see him, because I think he has the range to be that kind of guy. And then let him creep around the line of scrimmage as things start to slow down for him. I know things at times as a rookie, it's very fast in the NFL. So let it slow down for him. Once it does, he's probably the best pick for the Niners out of this entire draft, in my opinion. He could be that guy. Now, we had Vlad the Impala ask, where is Feliciano in all of this? Feliciano is probably going to be competing with Dominic Puny as a starting right guard. I think those are the two guys who will compete. Hopefully they give Spencer Burford the opportunity to compete at right tackle. He was drafted as a left tackle, converted to a right guard. Doesn't normally pan out when you convert a tackle to a guard usually. Let him try to get reps at tackle, see how he does. So I think that's what will happen. The next player the Niners took, they traded up 2 5th round. They traded up to get him 2 5th rounders for Isaac Guerendo, who I think the only way he sees the field, the reality is, the only way I see it, is on special teams.
Yeah.
Like, I don't see Christian McCaffrey giving up carries unless Kyle forces him. Normally he punks Kyle Shanahan for the ball. So you can't tell Christian McCaffrey that he's getting a rep off. What are your thoughts on Isaac Guerendo, even though he's going to be probably that returner in the special teams game?
Yeah, track star. He's bigger than, man, he's a big dude, like, in his legs. Like, he breaks a lot of, leg tackles. So he's a one cut dude. So if he gets a cut and gets straight line, he's tough. He's pretty tough. He's a good running back, but he's stiff. His movement is, it kind of reminds me of like Mostert a little bit, but Mostert is like, he's an actual track star. Like, if he gets a lane, he's out of there. But I think Isaac is going to be a kick returner. He, like you said, he will not see the field. You have Elijah Mitchell, you have Jordan, you have McCaffrey. McCaffrey's not going to come off the field but a couple times a game. But I am intrigued what he can be as a kick returner. Again, like, he's stiff. All he has to do is, make one cut and get up the field, turn that straight line speed into a touchdown. And I think he has that ability, and I'm curious to see how he pans out as a kick returner.
And I think that's essentially kind of what the Niners envision it as, like the new kick return rule. Because when I watch him out of the backfield, he does run upright. He does have a tendency to not get his speed out of a cut. So he doesn't keep his speed. He's not one of those running backs where you're going to see him make multiple cuts but keep his speed. When he makes a cut, he's such a tight-hipped running back that he's played so tight. When he makes that cut, he kind of has to get going again, and it's very choppy feet to get going. And I think that could be a concern in the NFL. I think that's where you get lit up by linebackers or flowing safeties that are coming on that next level. When you do make that initial cut, can you keep your speed? And I didn't see it from him. So, which I wouldn't mind if Kyle goes a little more gap scheme with him. Hey, you know what? You're hitting that gap as hard as you can, full speed, and just go. You don't have to make any cuts. You're hitting that 5-hole, just go. Or the B gap, C gap, whatever teams want to call it nowadays. I know every team have different concepts and everything. So, but for him, not that bad of a pass catcher out of the backfield. Can you get him a screen? Just get him an open space. Can you screen him open? And if you can, he's a big play waiting to happen. But he's also, unfortunately, an injury waiting to happen.
Mm.
He's very injured at Louisville, transferred from Wisconsin. Injuries were a big problem for him in college. So now that becomes, does he keep his health in the NFL? Because if he can stay healthy, doesn't have much wear on his tires, so he could be a good dude. Do you think he beats out Jordan Mason? And then they also signed an undrafted free agent, Cody Schrader, who a lot of people are saying could potentially be a dude that makes the roster. Do you think Jordan Mason gets cut this year or traded?
I mean, traded. I don't know. It's tough. It's tough to be a running back in this league because like there's so many running backs, and teams probably feel like they have a Jordan Mason on their roster already. But I really like Jordan Mason, and he's a bit different than everybody else on the roster. So I think Jordan Mason stays. I think they stash. I think they stash Schrader. Because I mean, I like the way Schrader runs. He runs hard. It is what his running style is going to translate to the NFL. He's not very fast, not very quick, not twitchy at all. But his run style is going to translate to the NFL. But I think Jordan Mason stays. I think they stash Schrader. And I think depending on if Isaac wins the return job, he'll make the roster. If not, it's going to be the same three, the Elijah Mitchell, McCaffrey, and Jordan Mason. I think Jordan Mason stays.
Okay, so if Isaac Guerrero doesn't win the return job, let's say for some reason he either gets hurt in camp or whatever, which if he gets hurt, he's going to the IR, so they would stash him. But let's say he doesn't make the roster, and it's more of a stash him on the IR, let him learn the NFL speed or NFL playbook and whatnot. And let's say Cody Schrader does beat him out, or Jordan Mason does beat him out. Is that a waste of a draft pick in your opinion, or do you like the ability because he has that home run ability?
No, I don't think you draft a fourth round kick returner unless he's a game breaker, who's somebody who's done it in college, and they know once if they touch the ball, there's a chance for them to go every single time. So yeah, if he doesn't make the team as a kick returner, I think again it is a waste of a draft pick, especially on a win now team.
So then we ended up going after that. I thought this was an interesting pick because they doubled up at receiver. Jacob Cowing in round 5 just gives you even more speed for this offense. But again, not many reps are to be had at receiver.
Yeah.
What were your thoughts of Jacob Cowing as a receiver, and what was it like when you saw that? Because I know as a receiver, you watch Jacob Cowing, like it's kind of like, oh, this dude could play, like that's for sure. He jumps off the screen at times. And what were your thoughts on Cowing?
So Cowing is interesting. I really love what I see on film. I think he needs to become a better route runner to succeed in this league. Because I mean, he can be a 3 low end 2 type of receiver. If he improves on his routes, and he shows the ability to run great routes, and then other times you're just like, oh, where did his route running ability go? But I love him with the ball in his hands. He can be special. He's dangerous. I just don't know where the reps are going to come from. I just bless you. I don't know where the reps are going to come from.
Thank you.
You have Debo. You have Debo, Jennings, Ricky, and Ayuk. Those are locks 4. So are you going to just give him certain certain sets? Like, okay, you get this set, and he'll get like 5 to 10 plays a game. I don't know. I think he can be more than that. Again, with the ball in his hands, he's special. If he improves on his route running, he can be a low end 2, high end 3 type of receiver. And I was confused with the pick, but I confused with the pick, but I love the player.
And that was me too. I was confused by the pick because there was other players available. There was other things available. But I like adding some explosiveness to Kyle's offense. If you kind of look at our offense, you do have the top 2 are explosive, right? You got BA and Debo, who they could turn a 5-yard slant into a 90-yard touchdown. Like those 2 dudes could do it. Then you look at the rest of the receiving core, and it's like, who's supposed to take it over? Who's supposed to take up the top? Like, who's going to be that clear out guy with the speed that truly gives a safety some kind of threat? Danny Gray was never that. Can Cowing be that kind of dude who could just be a clear out guy every once in a while? You put the ball in his hands, he could change a game. He could be that dude with the electric speed he has. So for me, I like the pick, the player,
Mhm.
but I would have gone in other routes. In terms of other players were on the board. I like Malik Washington. Ended up going a little bit later to the Miami Dolphins. So see how that plays out and stuff like that.
Mhm.
But I think Cowan, the player, could be something. I think he's going to be a guy who is going to be a punt returner as well. Can he return punts?
Mhm.
Can he be a dude who can make the roster via special teams first? And if he can, I think once Debo and Jennings are gone, that's where his role is, in that slot. Like, he's going to be a true slot and be a guy that just get out and go.
Yeah.
And then Niners played Moneyball again. Jarrett Kingston. He goes in the 6th round. I just got done talking about the short shuttle. I believe Jarrett Kingston had a ridiculous short shuttle in the 4.4s as well. So going off of the short shuttle and being that kind of scout where you're like, you know what? It's a 6th round pick. They're likely not going to make our roster.
Mhm.
Let's at least just go with analytics. He ran a 4.47 shuttle, short shuttle. So it might work. Bench 32 times, shorter armed guy, 6'4" with 32-inch arms. I thought this one was just more so, you know what? Let's see if something sticks.
Yeah, and they're like, okay, we haven't gotten too many. We should have got an offensive lineman earlier in the draft. We got Puni, who well, I think they love, but they need more. So he's a like you said, let's see if it works. He has a trait that we like, and I mean, personally, the film, I don't really see him making the team. He's a project. He's a developmental project. And we'll see where it goes. He'll probably be on a practice squad and for a year or two, depending on how he progresses. But yeah, I don't foresee him, making the team.
For me, my biggest concern was the fact that Bo Limmer was on the board still. That was my biggest concern. A dude from the SEC who was at the Senior Bowl and played really well at the Senior Bowl, who could play center, who could play guard. That was my concern. It was like, you just passed on Limmer, who went 2 picks after to the Los Angeles Rams to take Kingston. Limmer has the higher upside, likely better chance to make your roster. So that to me was an interesting pick. So I'll definitely be, and Vlad the Impala says Limmer was the obvious pick. So for me, that was just confusing. I was like, that just doesn't make sense to pass up on the better player. But hey, the last pick was a guy I don't think makes the roster, Tatum Batoon. A lot of people were like, oh, he plays with the thumper mentality, plays with like Dre Greenlaw. He's also really small, really slow. I mean, the mindset's great. I love the mindset. You can't beat that. But the film don't lie. Like the film shows a slower linebacker. The Niners drafted 2 linebackers last year and late in the draft. One was a speedy small guy, and the other one was a bigger, slower guy. And I don't know about this pick, especially because there was other players there. I would have went defensive tackle Leonard Taylor. People were worried about in the 6th and 7th rounds. People are like, oh, well, character issues. Leonard Taylor has character issues. Bro, it's a 7th round pick. What the hell are we talking about? Character issues? Like, that's exactly where you take a character issue dude and you make sure he's in your locker room. He could be mentored by guys like Fred and Nick Bosa, and that's where that character issue goes away. So, what were your thoughts on Tatum Batoon?
Yeah, man, I seen a picture of Tatum side by side with Nick Bosa and Joey Bosa online. I think it was today or yesterday, and you can just see how small he is. I know the Bosas are big dudes, but they were towering over the Bethune. So yeah, I mean I don't really foresee this going anywhere. It's a depth pick. I don't see the upside. Usually when you're going for upside, you're going with a speedy dude who can run from sideline to sideline. They have that in D Winters. And then I like the Jalen kid they drafted last year as well. So I don't foresee him making a was it Jalen?
Jalen Graham. It is great. Jalen Graham.
Yeah. So I liked him. So I don't foresee Bethune making the roster either. But I would say he does play a bit faster than what his 40 times suggest. But I don't think it's enough for him to make the roster.
And when you look at him, I know a lot of people are comparing him to Greenlaw, right? Greenlaw did run a 4.7. He did.
Mhm.
I do remember that when we drafted him. I was like, damn, this doesn't play. He did not play like a 4-7 guy
Yeah.
on his film. He looked like from what I saw, a converted safety, which he was,
Mhm.
out of position playing linebacker. Like
Yeah.
he didn't know how to react at the linebacker. It was like he was growing into the linebacker role. He also had he also has like an extra 15 pounds on Batoon coming out. I think Greenlaw weighed in at 240, Batoon at 225 roughly.
Oh
So
yeah.
it's like it's
Yeah.
a bigger size. Like you're a smaller dude, so you should be running faster.
Yeah.
So for me, that was it. Now the Niners ended up going a couple of undrafted free agents. But before we get to the undrafted free agents and asking you which one was your favorite undrafted free agent signing,
Mhm.
based off of everything you saw, the film that you've watched, what grade would you give the 49ers this draft class? And did they draft great or did they draft to be the safe pick?
So personally, I'm gonna give them a B minus. Um, I just don't when you have superstar potential in the first round, and again, it's potential. They could be hit or miss. When you have a superstar potential in the first round, I think you take a swing at it. I think they went the safe pick because we know what Ricky's going to be. He's going to be a solid player who we hope could be a really, really good player, right? But he's not Leggett. Everybody knows that. Let's not sugarcoat it. He's not Leggett. He doesn't have the ability that Leggett has. So I'm gonna give it a B minus. And also I think they should have went corner then receiver. Again, my opinion doesn't matter, but that's what I would have did. I think there was a few corners there at 31 that I would have took a swing at one of the Alabama corners, and then came back in the second round. And who knows? Maybe Ricky was there, maybe not. But I feel like you could have got another receiver. Shoot, one of my favorite receivers from USF lasted in like the third or fourth round, and he's going to be a baller. He's with New England. He's going to be a baller. But I think I would have went corner first and then receiver second. And then who knows? That fourth round receiver may end up playing more just because of his ability and what he can do with his hands on the ball. So I don't know. I just think I'm not going to call it a reach, but I just I don't really like the way the top half went.
And that's a fair grade. I know a lot of people had the Niners around a B plus grade. I can't go that high. I'm around C plus B minus. When I look at the draft, passing up on players with higher potential. Now, I get when you're drafting, you want a player who has a good floor, has a decent floor,
Mm-hmm.
but you also want players who could come in and change your franchise around. Like you don't want to do, like, for example, the Niners are going to have 39 unrestricted free agents this coming off season after the 2024 season, and some of those dudes that you're going to be possibly losing out on, Charvarius Ward. Okay, cool. You replace him with Renardo Green.
Mm-hmm.
Kool-Aid was there in the first round. He has franchise-changing potential. And again, it's potential. It's not like I'm not saying he's going to come in and be a franchise changer. At receiver, AD Mitchell, Xavier Leggett, they have superstar potential in terms of route running ability and athleticism. Now, at the center, guard, tackle situation, not coming out of the draft with the tackle was interesting. Was an interesting move. Letting even though the Niners may not have liked him, Kingsley Suamataia, letting the Chiefs get him was interesting. If the Chiefs value tackle, hey, they've been winning rings. Yeah. That was a guy I was really, really high on. They've been winning rings. So I felt like it was more so going safe. And I wonder how much it had to do with not having Adam Peters around. That's what I have to wonder. Is like, you know what? Let's go 1 year. Let's see how everyone scouts with the new clan we have scouting wise, and then we'll go from there, making those high upside picks. Now, I would give, like I said, I would give it a C plus, B minus, and I would probably say more so on the C plus side because it's not as much potential. These are guys where in a few years you're like, all right, don't extend them. They weren't great. Don't break the bank over a Ricky Pearsall when he's already going to be 29 years old. Renardo Green, maybe. But again, does he have that superstar corner ability? Maybe. I mean, I don't like to put a cap on players, but it's like you're saying, not really. Like, to be honest, not really. The Niners had a couple of undrafted free agents. I'm very curious to hear Is there any of those undrafted free agents that you're like, okay, cool, like I've heard of him, good player. So they ended up. I'll name off the guys they ended up signing.
Mm.
QB Tanner Mordecai from Wisconsin played at SMU. Running back Cody Schrader, a walk-on at Missouri. Then you had Tariq Owens, the son of Terrell Owens out of Missouri State. You got tight end Mason Pline from Furman. Center Drake Nugent from Michigan, who also played at Stanford and started at center for them. You had tackle Briason Mays from Southern Mississippi. Evan Anderson, a defensive tackle from Florida Atlantic, who was given a pretty hefty guaranteed money to sign with the Niners. And then safety Jalen Mahoney out of Vanderbilt. Any of those guys ring a bell, or like, oh, hey, they got a good player as an undrafted free agent guy?
Well, I saw the only one I knew was Schrader, but I watched all of them. I watched all of them after they signed. I watched all of them, and I'm really intrigued with so Schrader. His, like I said, his running style will translate because he runs so hard. He doesn't have anything that pops out to you where it's like, okay, he's going to be a, you know, that. But that's why he didn't get drafted. He doesn't have anything that just pops out to you, but he has good vision and he runs hard. So, you know, I see him. He can possibly be a short yardage back in the future. You know, depending on how he runs in the preseason, maybe he does beat out Jordan Mason. Who knows? But I do like his running style, and I just remember him always having big games in college. But another player the other two players that I like, the D tackle from
Florida Atlantic, Evan
okay.
Anderson.
I'm not gonna say I like him. I don't really like him like that, but he can potentially have something that the Niners don't have on their roster, and that's a run stuffer. I've seen a lot of comparisons to DJ Jones, maybe just his size. He's nothing like DJ Jones. He's not quick. He doesn't pop off the ball, but he has the potential to be a run stuffer. So maybe that, you know, leaps him into maybe making the roster, if you know, but I don't really like him as a player. But another player who's intriguing, tight end, 6'7". He's long. He moves good. Pause. He moves good for a bigger dude. He's 6'7" from Furman. 6'7", soft hands. He knows when to high point the ball. I think if he can block, I didn't really see blocking clips, but if he can block, look out for him to make the roster.
So what was very interesting about Mason Pline, so I haven't gotten to watch him. He's one of the guys that I have not yet watched, and I'm not gonna be one of those dudes that, I watched him and just like repeat everything you just said or like what I read. Like, you know what I mean? Because there's some dudes who do that. Like, let's be real. Exactly. There's some dudes that do that, and I'm not about to be that kind of dude. But what I did read upon him was he's a converted basketball player.
I see it. I didn't know that, but I can see it now.
So the fact that you're saying like he knows how to high point the ball, he has the athleticism. You're saying, well, basketball players know how to high point a ball. That's a rebound. So that's intriguing to me. Now I want to go and watch his tape and see what he truly is, because I believe he played Furman is the school. Is that the same school that played Montana in like that shootout in the quarterfinals?
Yes, the purple team. Yes.
Purple, yeah. Okay. I do remember not necessarily watching him. It was watching Montana, because the FCS has great college games, like playoff games.
Yeah,
they go neck to neck during the playoffs. And I do remember them playing Furman. So I have to go watch that game because Montana was like number 2 in the nation for FCS. So that's probably one of the better competitions he got to play against. My favorite undrafted free agent for the 49ers is Drake Nugent. I think he's better than Jarrett Kingston that they drafted in the 6th round. When I was covering Stanford, he was a dude who he athletic, could get out on blocks, shorter dude, shorter length in terms of arm length and stuff like that. So nothing crazy spectacular, but he was also on a national championship team, so he's a winner.
Yeah,
he knows how to block for an offense who likes to run the ball. And then the next guy I do like how Cody Schrader runs pissed off. I love how he plays with a nasty energy. I know there's a couple of people who've been trying to sell Tanner Mordecai to the fan base. I'm gonna hold off on that one. I'm gonna keep it real. So when I covered Wisconsin before he transferred, and when he transferred over, I watched his college tape at SMU, and I was like, "Oh, this dude's good. Like, if he should have left this year. Like,
Mhm.
a spread offense who he was just a gunslinger mentality, get the ball out quick, short release, good enough arm strength, athletic enough, but not a good quarterback. Like,
Yeah.
there's a difference between having some talent and being a quarterback.
Mhm.
He doesn't have the quarterback in him. Wisconsin cut the middle of they cut half the field in half for him to make
Mhm.
reads. Let's not sell him just because he's an undrafted free agent to the Niners that he's a good quarterback and he has talent, has potential, maybe could be either third string quarterback or practice squad guy, but I don't see him being a dude who is going to beat out Josh Dobbs and what's the other dude?
Brandon Allen.
Brandon Allen. I don't see him beating them out year one. Like, probably stash him on the practice squad, let him be a dude who could just come in and be that fourth arm in camp.
Mm.
The dude I'm excited to go watch just because the Niners didn't get any offensive tackles is Bryson May. I have not watched him yet, but I want to go watch him just because I personally thought the Niners. I don't know if you remember. Dang, what's his name? He's with the Titans. They just traded for him. Titans trade for OT.
Yeah. It was an
Brown.
offensive tackle for
Leroy Watson.
Okay.
Leroy. So they traded for Leroy Watson.
Mhm.
When the Niners had Leroy Watson in camp, I thought Leroy Watson had starting potential in the sense of you could develop. He was a former tight end at 6'5", like 315, athletic guy. He obviously played tight end. So when I was watching him in camp, I was like, damn. I kept saying, you know what? This is a dude who could potentially convert to a tackle and have success.
Mhm.
Niners ended up trying to play practice squad him. He got snatched up off the practice squad by the Cleveland Browns. And he got traded and just a 7th round pick. But I'm going to keep an eye on him because I like seeing what the Niners do in camp, bringing in dudes who have converted to a position, have the athleticism. How can he convert? So I want to go watch Bryson Mays. How does he look? I want to say he played at West Virginia. I think he played center at West. These are the notes I have off him just because I want to go in and watch. So played center at West Virginia. And then he went to Southern Mississippi and played offensive tackle. So I don't know if he. Sometimes what happens is if you're at, let's say you're at a big school, right? You're at West Virginia, and you're not that big of an offensive lineman. They put you at an interior spot because you don't have the length. Right. Then you go to a smaller school like Southern Mississippi, and who doesn't recruit big offensive linemen, and you're considered, even though you're at another school, you're a center, and you weren't that big. Can you play offensive tackle? Because he's only, I want to say he's only 6'3.5". So it's like, is he an offensive tackle? Is he an offensive tackle? Is he a guard? Shout out to my guy Jason. So that's what I want to go watch. Just like, because you end up coming away with truly no offensive tackles in this draft class. Is he a guard? I think he might be a guard.
Do they have a type? What is like? Why aren't they drafting offensive tackles?
They have a type. It's called Jalen Morris. It's called Cole McKivitz. It's called going with guys who could play guard or tackle, but not great at either of them, and just being solid enough. That's what I've came to my conclusion. Like, how do you draft then in a very high offensive tackle class and say we could not come away with any offensive tackles? Not even like a late 6th rounder.
Yeah, I don't get it. I don't get it. They got a type. They love. I don't know what it is, man. They want the tackles that can play guard. That's all I can think of.
What are your thoughts on Tariq Owens?
So I did watch him briefly. It was tough to find anything on him. So what I was able to see is he's not Terrell. He's not Terrell, obviously. But
hey, I felt bad. So have you seen the video of him at 49ers, their local pro day, and he's running a route and bro, so he's running a route and someone, I felt so bad. Do you watch that show All American? Have you seen that show All American?
Yeah.
Someone said, what in the Spencer James route have an ass? I was like, bro,
that's messed up, man.
It took homeboy like 6 seconds to get out of his break, and I was like,
yeah.
Oh, all right. You signed him because he's T.O. son. I respect it.
So you see it in the film as well. What I will say, he has great stride and he's really good with the 50-50 ball. But his routes are they have a long way to go. I don't even this receiving core is so deep. The Niners are so deep at receiver. I don't know if he makes, practice squad. I don't know if he makes the practice squad. If he does, it's mainly him doing Terrell a favor, but he's not even around like that. So I don't know if they're gonna do him any favors. So yeah, that's my assessment of him.
And when you watch, so like when I was watching like the couple of videos that I was able to get a hold of, the only way I see him being a dude like who eventually makes the practice squad or a roster eventually is as a like you're saying, like that deeper threat, or being that dude who can't run routes and he's just living over the middle. Like he's just living over the middle. Like that's the only way I could see it, because his route running ability, oh geez, don't have him run a comeback, don't have him run a stop route, don't have him run any of that shit. Like like maybe a slant, maybe like a 3-yard slant, and just let him be that dude who big bodies. But wow, like
I don't even know if that
it's like so for me, I thought I had Brendan Rice, Jerry's son, as a 5th rounder, 6th rounder, and then we're going to this, I believe, going to the 7th. I was like, okay, like he makes Jerry's son look like he could run routes.
Yeah.
And Jerry's son can't run routes. So like that was like, whoa, like that's
it was concerning. I felt bad because I was when I was watching, I was expecting, when I first started to watch, I was expecting, for me to see something that was like, okay, that's Terrell Owens' son right there. But you didn't see it, and that's not a knock on him. He's living his dream out right now. He's able to put his dad's former team's uniform on, and
that's kind of dope.
That's pretty dope, right? Dope. And let's see what he does with it. So I'm excited for the Owens, man, the Owens family.
And you never know, man. A player could get somewhere. He could be working on his craft. Come into camp. He could be a dude that beats out guys, like, and proves us wrong. Like he could truly. Hey, who knows, man? He has the athleticism. He has the genetics. So sometimes when all you need is genetics, man. And so Jason says Kyle is in love with his dad's Broncos O-line. Other than Trent, he keeps trying to get smaller sized, high IQ offensive linemen, which is true. But if you're getting smaller, high IQ offensive linemen, you might want to tell them when they're supposed to block certain situations. I mean, no knock on Burford, but he should be playing tackle. Like, you're playing him out of position. One. Now you having Jalen Moore, who is a guard, who's a smaller tackle, right? He's a small tackle playing out of position. So, like, what's the point of getting these dudes and you're just playing them out of position because you think you could jigsaw puzzle piece an offensive line together? Like, I think that is the major concern with the Niners. Like, you draft Jalen Moore, he was a tackle, I believe, at Western Michigan, I believe. It might have been a guard. But he's a smaller sized dude, one, that showed on tape. You play him at tackle. Spencer Burford, solid offensive tackle coming out of the draft. His tape was really solid. You play him at guard. It's like, just play him at their natural position and let's see what you could get. So that's where I'm confused by. But I know Jay Harp gave the 49ers draft class a B-. I give them a C+. Pretty solid in terms of what they got. Looks like they're more so planning for the future with this draft class rather than the now, which makes sense because there are not many roster holes to fill. So hopefully that goes. Any last comments, Jay Harp?
Tanner Mordecai, right? That's his name?
Yeah, Tanner Mordecai.
I tried to dive into the hype, man, but I didn't see it. I tried to. He is athletic.
No shot at the person who was tweeting it out. Shout out to Larry.
I don't even know who.
It was Larry Krueger. It was Larry Krueger. He was trying to say, like, oh, they got something in him. I'm like, hold up. I watched him at SMU. He was better. If he would have left SMU that draft class, like that year before he went to Wisconsin, he probably would have gotten drafted. The fact that he went to Wisconsin and they had to cut the middle of the field in half so he could have reads, and he still wasn't that great.
And I was trying to give him the benefit of the doubt. Like, I was thinking, like, maybe because Wisconsin is just, I hate their offense, and I was trying to give him the benefit of the doubt, but I just didn't see nothing that got me excited. He can move. He can move pretty good. He's athletic enough, but that's about it. That's all I saw. He has a quick release. He does have a quick release.
He does have SMU. That's what I noticed at SMU when I was watching SMU. It's a quick release. It was more about just gunslinging mentality at SMU. Like SMU offense is ridiculous. Like they just throw the ball 60 times a game and just put up points every year, but never have a defense or an offense that could win games like that.
Right.
So for him at SMU, it was a perfect opportunity for his style of play. Get the ball out quick, put up stats, a lot of yards, a lot of touchdowns and stuff like that. But when you're in a pro style offense, you should be with that gunslinger mentality. You should be able to elevate your players around you. And he didn't do that. And from what I heard, they cut the middle of the field in half for him so he could read the plays. So that's where I was like, yeah, that's not, as a quarterback, I don't like to hear that. But if you guys want to tune in, if you guys are on Twitter, make sure you guys are following Jay Harp II. Make sure you guys go over to his YouTube channel. It is I believe it's Jay Harp TV, correct?
Yep, Jay Harp TV. Josh Harper TV.
Josh Harper TV. You guys go over there and subscribe to him. Make sure you guys tune in later today at around in 2 hours, 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. So 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'll be on with Jesse Naylor. I'll be giving my power rankings for the NFL, the top 10, top 5, whatever the case may be for the NFL post-draft. See where the Niners land. I don't know where that's going to happen. That's going to happen. I'm probably going to get killed for that one. Kind of concerning on that one, but make sure y'all tune in. Appreciate everyone for tuning in today. We had a good amount of people tuned in. Hit that like and subscribe button on both channels. I appreciate every single one of y'all. We out.
Peace.